All
What's
right,
up?
we are live in beautiful, sunny Florida. And today, fight fans, we're going to be breaking down UFC 219 Cyborg versus Holm in Las Vegas, Nevada for that women's featherweight title. Cyborg looking to defend it for the first time against Holm, who is 0-1 at 145 pounds in the UFC. But man, the fight I'm really looking forward to here is the co-main event between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Edson Barboza, barring it actually happens. But just a sick card altogether. We lost a great fight during fight week, but more than happy to pay the $60 for this card. And I am joined by two of my favorite people on in this little MMA world. We got Dan Levy of Half the Battle, and we got Justin of UFC Bro Picks. Dan, what's up, man? How you doing? And how do you feel about this card?
I'm doing amazing, man, and I feel great. Anytime that there's money on the line, I'm excited. It does not matter who's on the card. I mean, look, man, there's money on the line, so that's a reason to be excited, and it's a good card.
Justin, what about you, man? How do you feel about this card, and how you doing today, man?
What's up, man? Doing good. It's a pretty good card. I mean, I think it should be on free TV, but I mean, it is what it is. The Rivera fight was one of the best fights on the card, but I wanted to see him fight, Moraes, but it didn't happen. But it'll probably happen in the future. But yeah, man, it's a good card. I'm excited.
Man, I would pay $60 for Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Edson Barboza alone. But of course, we're going to be breaking down the entire 11 fight card here. And quickly before we start, I am coming off a losing weekend. I lost 4 units on that last card. I'm actually like just about broken even on the year. I'm minus 0.04 units for the year. So this card decides my year, man. Am I going to profit? Am I not? I love this card from a betting perspective. I have a lot of solid spots I'm solid on here. So yeah, let's just run down. We got first fight. We got Omari Akhmedov plus 190 taking on Marvin Vettori minus 230. I'm gonna let Justin start with this one.
Yeah, this is a good fight, man. I'm gonna have to go with Vittori though. I do think that he's a better striker. Mari's a pretty good grappler, but one thing here that I didn't bet Vittori's because both their cardio, they had cardio issues. But I mean, Vittori kind of gassed out last fight against Miranda. He still got the W, and Amari's going up to 185. I mean, before he beat Allison, I mean the dude got finished in the third round twice. But I mean, he's a big dude. I mean, we'll see how he does at 185. But Vittori's pretty big too, and Vittori, fought a pretty good fight with Carlos Jr. That second round was pretty dominant. I mean, he almost finished Carlos Jr. And it's not like Carlos Jr. Was dominating him on the mat. So it was a pretty close fight. I do think Carlos won, but I think Vittori's just more well-rounded, and he's a pretty good prospect in the division, man. I think he's going to go out there and finish Omari. So I got Vittori with a second round finish.
Dan?
I mean, it's a good move for Akhmedov to go up to 85, man, because I think those last couple weight cuts were really killing him. And he is a big dude. I mean, you saw the size difference between him and Al Hassan. He almost made Al Hassan look like a 55 or so. It was a good move for Omari to head up to 85, but now he's taking on a dude that's way bigger than him in Vittori. And the thing with Vittori is only like 23, 24 years old, so you're going to see this kid get better every single time. What I like about him is that forward pressure. He's got that King's MMA style, blast that body kick. And his last fight, I know he gets criticized a lot because he gassed out, but I think it was one of those situations where he kind of needed the experience. He let everything all out on the line. He tried to finish Vitor Miranda at his own game, standing. He gassed out a little bit, but he still dominated him. I think in this spot, it can get interesting. If Omari can get the takedowns, he can do well there. But I think that the size alone of Marvin is going to help him keep the fight upright. Also in that fight with Antonio Carlos Jr., you saw in that second round, yeah, he fucked Carlos up pretty bad. He just gassed himself out, which is, again, the flaw in his game. So it's about him maintaining his cardio here and being poised for 3 straight rounds, and I think he'll do that. I'm going to go Vittori by decision.
Yeah, man. So I max bet Marvin Vettori in his last fight against Vitor Miranda, and I was sweating a little bit. It wasn't entirely a completely dominant decision. He did have some moments of he had to break through and prove himself a little bit more, but overall it was a good performance, man. And the thing with Omari Akhmedov, I feel like he's one of those guys that there needs to be another weight class for this guy. He's too big for 70. He's too small for 85, and I'm not so sure the cardio problems are going to go away. We see these guys come in with extra weight on them in fight week, and then they still gas out. Like Conor McGregor at 170 comes to mind, but man, this Omari originally was one of the underdogs and one of many underdogs on this card that I was considering at one point because I do absolutely think the line is off here. I am going to go with Marvin Vettori, and I'm going to say he gets it done by decision. I feel like he probably stuffs the takedowns of Omari Akhmedov and wins. I don't want to say it. I'll say it's a close. It'll be a close striking match, but it'll be clear that he'll win all 3 rounds. So I'm gonna go with Marvin Vettori, 30-27 decision. I feel like he outstrikes the Russian here, not easily, but I think he for sure gets the job done here. And from when it comes to a betting perspective, I say dog or pass here. But I'm passing from it altogether. So next fight, man, we got Tim Elliott minus 225 taking on Mark De La Rosa plus 185. I'll start with this one, man. So the thing about Mark De La Rosa, he's a talented guy, man. He's a decent striker. He's a decent grappler. He's actually married to what's her name? Montana De La Rosa, who somehow made her way into the top 10 rankings in the UFC, which kind of blows my mind. But either way, man, I feel like it's probably a good thing. I mean, we see all these relationships in the UFC, and I feel like they strive off each other in the relationship. And I feel like Mark's a solid fighter, man. I just don't like the whole thing. If you guys don't know, he had an LFA fight scheduled earlier this year, and it was against Steven Peterson. You might have seen him on the Contender Series. He lost to, I want to say it was Benito. And the thing was, they went to weigh-ins, and Steven Peterson had initially missed weight, and then they brought him back an hour later, and he made the weight. But Mark De La Rosa, he says that it was a very sketchy situation, and he didn't show up on fight day, and nobody knew he was going to do that. He kept quiet on weigh-in day, and the guy didn't show up. He got ridiculed for it. I don't want to say it's a bitch move, but it's a little sketchy. I'm still going to pick him here as an underdog. I'm not going to bet him just because, Tim Elliott, he has all the UFC experience. And he does have decent wins, but he loses a lot, man. That he's a 500 fighter in the UFC, but I'm going to go with the younger guy. I'm going to go with the undefeated guy. I think Mark De La Rosa's first loss is definitely coming to him, but I feel like he might be able to he could outstrike Elliott here. I feel like maybe he could out-grapple him. I mean, we just saw Tim Elliott get absolutely smoked in his last fight. And another thing, I know it is terrible, but you do have to look at every angle in a fight, especially when you're thinking about putting money on it. The unfortunate passing of Tim Elliott's coach, Robert Follis, and, he's taking this fight on short notice. I feel like this is just a really bad idea. I feel like this is kind of a situation, kind of like we saw last week with Ricardo Lamas and Josh Emmett. This is probably a fight he shouldn't be taking because he's so much higher up in the rankings than the guy. He has so much to lose, and there's a lot going on. So I'm going with my gut pick here. I'm going to go with Mark De La Rosa, and I feel like he probably gets it done by, I'll say a greasy 29-28 split decision. Dan, what about you?
Well, man, you said Tim Elliott's a 500 fighter in the UFC. He's a lot worse than a 500 fighter in the UFC. He's 3-6. Okay, he needs to win 3 more fights for him to be a 500 fighter in the UFC. And here's the thing with De La Rosa. So, firstly, he's been training with James Vick since he was 13 or 14 years old. He's got great boxing. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's trained as wrestling with Kenny Monday for about 3 years. So that's a big fucking deal. He's actually a bantamweight, unlike Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott's moving up a weight class for this one because he doesn't want to cut the weight. And this could be the classic letdown spot because I know Elliott was really excited to fight Justin Scoggins. And, Scoggins pulled, which he is known for. And now Elliott, he had to fight. Who was the kid he was supposed to fight last week again?
Petro Manga.
Yeah. So he's supposed to fight my boy Manga. Manga couldn't, Manga said, look, the best I can do is 131. Tim Elliott didn't want the fight. Now Tim Elliott's like, all right, look, I had a full training camp. I better get paid for this shit. So, he's going to step up a weight class and fight this kid. And this is a very dangerous spot for him. Yeah, obviously Tim Elliott's got the more experience and all that stuff, but there's weight classes for a reason, man. I would recommend, if you don't have anything else on the line, maybe take a small shot on De La Rosa. I'll pick him here, but I'm not betting because, as you know, I'm very deeply invested in something later on the card.
Justin?
Yeah, it's a tricky fight. I mean, I've been back and forth with it. Initially I was picking De La Rosa, but I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like Elliott, like Dan said, has the more experience. I do think he's a better grappler too, and I mean, I do think Del Rosa has a better boxing. I mean, Tim Elliott's not even that good in the feet at all. The dude has good pressure. That's about it. But I think on top, if he gets him down, which I think he will, I think he kind of smother him. I mean, look what he just did to Smoke. I know Smoke's done, but he dominated Smoke for 3 rounds. So I'm gonna have to go with Tim Elliott here, man. But Tim Elliott's a huge fade. I'm looking forward to see who he fights next.
All right. So next fight of the night, we got Matheus Nicolau minus 270 taking on Luis Smolka plus 230. I'm going to let the man Dan Levy start with this one.
Well, firstly, to everyone watching, I sincerely apologize for ruining that line. You know what I'm saying? From minus 175 to minus 405 in the span of 30 minutes. I mean, that's what we do around here. But now it's coming down a little bit more. Now it's about minus 280. So now we're getting back to playable range. And on paper, look, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But on paper, I think it's a mismatch. And I'll tell you why. Before I tell you why, let me just address this USADA shit, because everyone's like, oh, you're betting on a dude coming off a steroid suspension? And it's like, yeah, you motherfuckers are acting like this is 40-year-old Vitor. And real quick, the full rant that I'm about to do, you'll hear it tomorrow on Half the Battle, but I'll give you the condensed version. So motherfuckers are like, oh, this dude's coming off a USADA suspension. He's going to look soft. It's like, okay, this isn't a 40-year-old like Vitor Belfort. This is a 24-year-old kid. You know, Brian T. City Ortega popped in his first UFC fight, and ever since then he's been finishing everyone else. No one ever talks about that, right? You know what I'm saying? And this is a situation like that. You look at the pictures of Matheus, he looks perfectly ripped. He's in great shape. I don't put any stock whatsoever into his USADA suspension, not even a little bit. I'm not worried about that whatsoever. If he loses this fight, it's going to be because either Smolka got on top and Matheus can't get out and he got pounded out, which isn't going to happen because, Matheus is a first-place IBJJF black belt, in case you didn't know, so that shit ain't going to happen. But that's the worst-case scenario. Second worst-case scenario is we shoot it on a sloppy shot and we get guillotined, which is also probably not going to happen. So our last fight with John Moraga, I mean, when you make your flyweight debut and you school the number 5 guy on planet Earth for 3 straight rounds, I mean, what else is there to say? He was clean, crisp in the pocket, beautiful left hook. And I can't emphasize enough, the kind of level jiu-jitsu this kid has, because obviously he's been a black belt for, the last 4 years. This is the first black belt Luis Smolka has ever fought. And Matheus is the kind of kid that does his training camps in multiple places. For example, the Moraga fight, he did his training camp with Greg Jackson's. This fight with Smolka, he did his whole training camp with Damian Maia. You know what I'm saying? So you're working your jiu-jitsu with Maia every single day when you're getting ready to take on this scrambler and Smolka. Sounds like a pretty good idea to me. Sounds like we're in a position to win this fight. So on the feet, I think we're so much crisper than this guy. Look, I respect Luis Smolka. He's actually, a bit of a friend of mine. He's a really nice guy. But when it comes down to making money, none of that shit matters. You don't just bet on someone because they're your friend. I know someone's like, oh, but you bet on Vic every fight. Yeah, well, Vic's got a fucking 92% win rate. Of course I bet on him every fight. You know what I'm saying? It's a different story with Luis Smolka. So I wish Luis the best, and I hope he gets back on track after he takes this L. But what I think is going to happen here is that the deal with Smolka here. He likes to get into bad positions early so he can scramble his way out of them. If you give up a full mount or a back mount to a black belt like Matheus Nicolau, there's no scrambling out of it. You're getting choked out in the first round. So, and I do like the fact that, when Smolka gives up his back, he's got a very nice overhook, and he's able to get these guys on their backs after they take his back. But that's not going to happen here. This is the first black belt he's fought, like I mentioned. This is a guy who can maintain the position, and he gets Luis Smolka in a bad spot. Like I just said, he's going to keep him in a bad spot. I think he's going to put a clinic on Luis Smolka. Could be a finish, could be a 30-26, but bottom line, I got Matheus Nicolau. I put 6 units at minus 175. Now, obviously, you guys know this is the last UFC Player of the Year for me. If I win this play, I will finish the year about 45 units in profit. If I lose this play, I'll finish the year about 34 units in profit, which is my biggest year no matter what. So, I'm very excited about this opportunity. I think Matheus Nicolau is about to smoke this dude, and everyone that made a USADA argument is going to look like a fool.
Man, I don't know how to follow that, but I definitely agree with Dan said. And just to reiterate on a couple things that he mentioned, the John Moraga fight, the fact that fight was a split decision kind of blows my mind a little bit. And man, if you look at Luis Smolka's record, it seems like every single time he faces a grappler, He loses, and this is arguably the best grappler he's ever fought. You see him scrambling out of situations with the Patty Houlihan's and the Tim Elliott's of the world, but like Dan said, I don't think he's going to be able to scramble out here. He's going to get choked out here by Mateus Nicolau, and I got 2 plays in this fight, man. I took the under 2.5 rounds at plus 200 because I feel like Nicolau has all the talent in the world to get Louis Smolka out of there really early, man. And if Smolka does win, like Dan said, it's going to be a fluke and it's going to be a finish. It's probably going to happen. It's probably going to happen early. So I like my 1 unit on the under there at plus 200. I wanted to be a little different. And then, like he mentioned, the line did start to get a little better. So I put Nicolau in a parlay with something later in the card, 2.3 units. So I love this spot. And I think Nicolau thrashes Louis Smolka. We know the kind of things he's going through in his personal life. I mean, I've seen firsthand in person with close people in my life battling with alcoholism, and it's no slouch, man. Louis Smolka's gone through some shit, I guarantee, and there's a lot of shit he's probably gone through that we don't even know about. And the thing with Nicolau, sure he popped, sure he's been gone for a year, but you know this dude's been busting ass, and it's clear this dude's been busting ass because he looks better than before. I mean, physically, I'm talking about. So I feel like he rolls here. He's gonna get Smolka down. Smolka's gonna try to scramble out like he normally does, and he's gonna get choked out. So 2.3 units on Nicolau and 1 unit on the under 2.5. Justin, how you feel about this one, man?
Yeah, you guys said everything I wanted to say. I'm kind of thankful that I hit the line before Dan. I mean, I hit it at minus 155 for 4 units. And if any of you jobbers don't believe me out there, I'll send you the slip because I'm not fucking lying about this shit. But anyways, so let's talk about his fight against that Bruno guy. I mean, the first round dropped him. Second round almost tapped him out. The third round choked him out. And yeah, that was a bantamweight. And I think this is his second fight ever at flyweight. But the dude's going to be huge in there. And Smolka is just done, bro. I mean, this dude's done. I feel like this is not the Smolka that fought Ben 10. And one thing I want to talk about Smolka is he has terrible takedown defense. I mean, terrible takedown defense. Elliott was taking him down at will. And Nikolai is pretty good wrestling, man. I mean, he took down John Morgan in the third round. And the kid's a smart fighter, man. Good fight IQ. And Smolka has no striking, in my opinion, at all. The dude got a lucky kick in the third round against Richie Vasola. I mean, he was losing that fight pretty bad, too. So I don't think he has any striking. I mean, where he's good at's on the ground, but I don't think it matters here. I think Nikolai is going to dominate him wherever the fight goes. And I'm looking forward to see who Nikolai gets next because I really do think he's going to be a contender soon. So I got Nikolai.
All right. So next fight of the night, we got Myles Jury minus 245 taking on Rick Glenn plus 205. I'm gonna start out with this one, man. So I'll come right out and say it. I put 1.5 units on the underdog Rick Glenn here, and I fully expect to cash just like I cashed on him 2-1 underdog last fight against Gavin Tucker. This dude, Rick Glenn, maybe some people don't see it, but I see the talent in this guy. He's the perfect size for the weight class. He's got great striking. The dude's putting together a real good grappling game. I love the move to Team Alpha Male. I feel like he's a perfect fit there. And the thing with Myles Jury, he not only is the guy, he is on my fade list for sure. I mean, the guy never fights, and when he does fight, he either gets choked out by good fighters like Du Bronx, or he smashes jobbers like Mike De La Torre. And you know, I think Rick Glenn is a hell of a step up from, you know, a Mike De La Torre of the world. This is going to be his third appearance at 145 pounds, a cut that he's not fully used to. I mean, he's had 2 fights here at 145 pounds, but I mean, it's been a while since his last one, so who knows how that weight cut's going to be for him. I imagine it's tough. I imagine the weight cut's tough on Rick Glenn too, but Rick Glenn's been making that cut a little longer. And, you know, a lot of people were high on Jury real back in the day when he was, you know, he was beating everybody. But if you take a look at Myles Jury's wins in the UFC, let me run down this list, and you guys tell me if you're really, truly impressed by this. Mike De La Torre, Takanori Gomi, Diego Sanchez, Mike Ricci, Ramsey Nijem, and he's got Michael Johnson on there, but we know Michael Johnson drops the ball about yeah, maybe once or twice a year. The dude's a 500 fighter in the UFC. Enough said. But I think Rick Glenn can absolutely outstrike Myles Jury here, and I think he can mix up takedowns, man. Like I said, I love the fit. I think his wrestling is improving. He absolutely whooped Gavin Tucker's ass, and everybody was on that dude's dick after the Sam Cecilia fight. You know, Gavin Tucker. Now I see people going completely opposite, saying Gavin Tucker is nothing but a jobber because he lost to Rick Glenn. Nah, man, Rick Glenn is just a serious dude, and he had to take his first loss. So I think that's a very impressive win by Rick Glenn because I still am high on Gavin Tucker, and I took the shot on Rick Glenn there just because I felt like that was the line was off, and Rick Glenn was a tough matchup for him, like his first real big step up, and I feel like Rick Glenn puts a beating on Myles Jury here. Myles Jury, when he actually does fight, he either gets smoked by Dubronx, like I mentioned, or he smokes jobbers. And I don't think Rick Glenn is a jobber. I think he's a legit top 20 guy, and I'm being serious when I say that. I'm high on the dude. Justin, what do you think of this fight, man? And like I said, I have 1.5 units on him at plus 220 to win 3.30.
Yeah, it's a good fight, man. I don't think that Jury's a jobber, though. A lot of people think he's a jobber, but the dude's 16-2. I know he hasn't beaten anyone really good besides Michael Johnson. Like you said, Johnson drops the ball a lot, but I think Jury has good wrestling, and obviously, if he keeps it on the feet, I think Glenn's gonna pick him apart because I do think Glenn's the better striker. Glenn's the bigger guy, but I mean, Jury's a pretty good wrestler, man. He has good grappling, so I think Jury needs to take him down. But I mean, Rick Glenn's pretty, good on the ground too. I mean, he's pretty tough too, man. I mean, Dunham, almost choked him out 2 times, and I mean, Dunham's a top 10, lightweight, but Glenn showed, Matt Hart in that fight and didn't quit. Like I mentioned, he is the bigger dude here, but I'm picking Jury, man. I feel like he's gonna win a decision. He's gonna, just pick him apart and then, take him down. But on the feet, I will say this: that Rick Glenn's the better striker for sure. So I hope, Glenn, or I hope Jury gets him down, because if he doesn't, it might be kind of ugly on the feet. But yeah, I'll be picking Jury though. But I hope you cash because I got no play.
Before I let Dan go, do you say Evan Dunham was a top 10 lightweight?
I think he's a top 10 lightweight, right? I think he is. You don't think so?
Justin, I didn't know.
In my opinion, I think he's a top 10 lightweight. I didn't say like in the rankings. I think he's a top 10 lightweight. He is.
Hard disagree, but we're not talking about Evan Dunham right now. Dan, what do you think of this Rick Glenn versus Myles Jury fight?
It's an interesting fight, man. Well, firstly, I want to say that I always respect the odds maker's opinion, because if you look at the opening line for the Gavin Tucker Rick Glenn fight, it was almost a pick 'em, right? But then the public shifted Gavin Tucker to like a minus 400 favorite, whereas in this spot, Myles Jury minus 300. So it's either going to be, oh, he was completely wrong, or it was going to be like he knows something that we don't know, because the odds maker, he has his job for a reason. I'll just say that right now, man. So I think this fight has the potential to play out two different ways. If it's like kind of a pretty fight, I think Myles Jury is going to win. If it's an ugly, gritty, grimy fight, I think Rick Glenn's going to win. So I don't know, man. It's tough to call. It's all about what happens here, because I see, the fight starting out and Myles Jury kind of picking Glenn apart, mixing in takedowns, all that stuff. But if he starts to gas out a little bit, if he starts to, start looking up at the clock, checking how much time is left against a guy like Rick Glenn, Rick Glenn has a little Matt Brown in him. You'll start landing huge elbows. He'll start getting dirty in that clinch. And Rick Glenn's a serious vet. I mean, this is a guy that made Johnny Case tap the strikes like a million years ago. You know what I mean? He's been doing this shit a long-ass time. I agree with you. The move to alpha male was a great move for him. And I think he's getting, he's finding his home here at 145 again, even though he's been there for the majority of his career. But I think the weight cuts were getting kind of rough at one point, and now he's kind of dialed it back in, and he feels like he has a second win in his career. So I'm rooting for you, bro. I hope you cash this underdog play. And, yeah, let's go Rick Glenn.
All right. So moving on to the next fight, man. This is a banger right here. I love this fight. We got Dan Hooker plus 160 taking on Mark Diakiese minus 185. And I'll let you start out with this one, Dan.
Again, another tough fight to call, man, because it comes down to a couple things. Obviously, Mark Diakiese, the better athlete, the more explosive guy, the more dynamic guy, probably has the more potential, much younger. He's like, 23, 24 years old. And another thing I like about Diakiese is in that fight with Frankie Perez when it was tied 1-1 going into the third round. He had to make a decision if he wanted to win that fight, and he went to his wrestling. So I was like, okay, that's a very good sign for the future. And with Dan Hooker, I mean, how can you not respect the guy? He's always exciting, but, you know, obviously the trend is he wins one, loses one, kind of like Andre Fili, right? So conventional wisdom says he's going to take an L here, but as you and I both know, conventional wisdom don't mean shit, because Jan Blachowicz, he never wins 2 in a row until last week when, you know, he beat Jared Cannonier, and now he's on a 2-fight win streak. So don't be surprised if Hooker comes out here and gets another win. But the thing is, man, I do think the speed and athleticism is going to be too much of DeCasey. It's just one of those things where, kind of like the last fight we were talking about, I could see DeCasey coming out super hard that first round, and then Hooker start getting off on that jab, start picking him apart, front kicks to the face, you know, stuff like that. So the thing with Hooker, man, is he eventually going to get it together one day, kind of like my boy Vic did? Even though Vic was always a winner, don't get me wrong, but people would criticize Vic's striking defense because he was the taller man for the weight class. He had that tall man's defense. The last 3 fights, he really found his range, and he's been fucking dudes up. So I'm wondering if Hooker's going to have one of those moments where, you know, he turns things around and then he starts fucking dudes up. And, you know, when I say fucking dudes up, I don't just mean Ross Pearson, guys, okay? But is he going to have that turning point moment, or is he always going to be legit a 500 fighter? Because he is, 3-3 in the UFC, maybe 4-4 at most, you know what I mean? So he literally wins one, loses one. So I don't know. It's tough to call. I'll go with DeCasey.
Justin?
Yeah, I got Mark too, man. I think he has, you know, he's more well-rounded. He definitely has the wrestling advantage for sure. You know, Hooker he gets hit a lot, man. He has a good chin, but he definitely gets hit a lot. I mean, I feel like it's close, though, on the feet because they're both, you know, pretty good strikers. But like Dan said, you know, Mark is definitely more athletic, but he's a bigger dude too. I think he definitely has a grappling advantage and the wrestling advantage. So I think if he's smart, you know, he grapples him. And if it's a war, I mean, it's going to be back and forth. I mean, you know, so I feel like it's a dog or pass situation, you know. I respect the guys out there picking Hooker and betting Hooker because he's definitely alive for sure. But I think Mark's going to go out there and get back to his wrestling and win a 29-28 decision.
Yeah, man, I'll set the trifecta there. I'll pick Mark DeCasey here, and you know, Dan Hooker was one of the underdogs I was looking at for this card because I do feel like if this fight plays out on the feet the whole 3 rounds, I feel like Dan Hooker is probably the better striker and will outstrike Mark DeCasey. I mean, Mark DeCasey was getting outboxed by Frankie Perez kind of bad, man, and that was with Frankie Perez coming off a big old layoff. So I don't know, man. I do feel like Mark DeCasey, he does, for a European striker, he does have a nice little wrestling game to his to his set of tools, and I feel like that'll be key here. I feel like we're probably going to see kind of a close striking match. I feel like it'll be close because Hooker's the more technical striker, in my opinion, but DeCasey's the faster, more athletic, flashier dude, and can probably make it close, maybe even drop Dan Hooker. But I feel like in the key moments, like Dan mentioned, he got the takedown in a key moment in that Frankie Perez fight, and I feel like he'll get key takedowns here again. I feel like he's rightfully favored. I wouldn't bet him, but I feel like he's kind of solid here, and you never know. Maybe he could go out there and absolutely, wheel kick the face off of Dan Hooker. That wouldn't completely shock me. So, I mean, I haven't talked about much about DK in this video, but I think Mark DeCasey is actually a pretty decent DraftKings play in this fight because I feel like he'll either be getting a lot of takedowns or he'll be knocking Dan Hooker's face off. So I'm going to go with DeCasey. I'll say a decision, but I would be careful from betting it, man, because we've seen the guy get outstruck before, and we've seen the guy just lose to Drakkar Klose. So I would pass from this fight, in my opinion. So next fight of the night, we got Khalil Roundtree minus 300 taking on Michael Oleksiuk plus 250, and I'm gonna let Justin start out with this one.
Yeah, man, I already talked about it on my show, and I got, pretty fucking. I didn't get emotional. I got really riled up, but a lot of people out emotional there, maybe, but a lot of people out there think Khalil's a jobber and all this, and I do, I do agree that he doesn't. I do agree he doesn't have a good ground game and all this. We'll see when he fights a grappler, what's he gonna do. But McCall's not a grappler, okay? The dude's a slow striker. He has no business at 205 at all. The dude should go 185. His last fight, the dude almost got finished against a jobber, and then he went out there and he finished him, which is impressive. But if you're getting hit against Khalil Roundtree, you're gonna get knocked out, bro. So I do think Khalil's the faster striker for sure. He's the bigger guy. I mean, it's going to be a huge size advantage in my opinion. Probably like the Jan versus Cannon size. I really do think so. And Khalil's just going to, I pick him apart. I mean, the way better striker I already mentioned, way faster. Yeah, if it hits the mat, yeah, I'll be nervous for sure because, I mean, Khalil doesn't have the best ground game. But, I mean, when has McCall ever showed he's a grappler? He has one sub. He's a striker. So I think it's kind of easy money for Khalil. I don't have a plan right now. I'm waiting for the props to come out, but then I'll be playing him in the distance, maybe a KO prop. And my read on this fight too is, I think he's a different fighter now. I know he's lost to bums in the past. Okay, yes, he lost to Andrew Sanchez. Yes, he lost to his friend Corey Hendricks and all this stuff. But okay, he handled Daniel Jolly and Paul Craig like you're supposed to handle them. And in the octagon, I know me and Dan have been talking about this for a while, but in the octagon against Daniel Jolly after he won to Brian Stann, he told him like straight up, like I wasn't focused at all in the past, at all. I mean, he went out there and hugged Tyson Page and all this. I mean, the dude's a different fighter now, man. I know he's fought two jobbers, but they both have grappling, Jolly and Paul Craig. They didn't even get him down. So we'll see how McCall handles this fight. I don't think he's going to get him down, but I mean, when Khalil fights a grappler, yeah, we'll be talking about how, okay, Khalil probably, he might get taken down and lose, but I think Khalil's a different guy now. He's focused 100%, and he handled two jobbers like he should have. So I got Khalil by destruction, my most confident pick of the night, and I think he's going to make quick work of McCall.
I'm going to make my pick a little short because I know Dan's pretty eager to jump in and say something to Justin here. But, man, I think you're reading a little too much into the size difference thing, Justin, just because we just saw Khalil lose to a 185-pounder not too long ago in Andrew Sanchez. And not only that, Khalil Roundtree, he's fought at 185, so I wouldn't read into that a little too much. Another
He's pretty
thing,
big now, though, man. He's pretty big. He's put on some size for sure.
Man, I just feel like, yeah, he is beating Daniel Jolly. He is beating Paul Craig. I do think Michael is a step above those guys, just a little bit step above. I mean, if we're being honest, if we're using the word jobber around here, Michael's a jobber, man. He's being brought in to lose. He was brought in to lose against Ion Cutelaba, but I think the step above jobber is where Khalil Roundtree resides. Just a one step above jobber. Man, I am going to pick Khalil here. I feel like he is rightfully favored. The line's super off. How could you ever trust the guy at minus 300? I mean, a guy with virtually no ground game, a guy with virtually any wrestling defense. Sure, he's working on it. Of course he's going to work on it. He's in the UFC. He'd be stupid not to work on it, but I think it's kind of clear that he kind of just doesn't have it, man. I mean, he is a great striker, but absolutely, dude's a beast on the feet. But dude should go fight in Glory Kickboxing, if we're being honest. I would stay away from Khalil Roundtree, in my opinion. If he were to get taken down and subbed, wouldn't shock me at all. Even if he were to drop Michael and follow him to the ground and get subbed there, that wouldn't surprise me. We saw Khalil drop Tyson Pedro, and Tyson Pedro was still able to sub him, 30 seconds later? So, and if we're being honest, I'm not entirely high on Tyson Pedro. So I'd be careful betting Khalil, but he is rightfully favored. I am going to pick him. I think he does get it done by first round knockout, and I feel like if you're a DraftKings guy, you got to have a little Khalil just because he's going to be highly owned, and he probably will finish this fight by first round knockout. But from a betting perspective, be very careful. Dan?
Well, first of all, where'd Justin go?
I'm right here. Look, the props just came out like 10 minutes ago, but Khalil's minus 212 in the distance, so I'm not playing that.
What's the KO prop?
I'm looking at it now.
Minus 208.
You know something you need to be in the UFC, guys? A ground game. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just have striking if you want to win fights in the UFC. You kind of need to know how to get up from a takedown, how to stuff a takedown. You know, jiu-jitsu, that's a real thing too, Justin. Khalil Roundtree fucking sucks. And the thing here is, I know he's got a little bit of striking. I know he kind of looks like he's Anderson out there when he's knocking these complete scrubs out that have no business whatsoever in the UFC. Like, yeah, does Daniel Jolly have any business in the UFC? Nope. Does Paul Craig have any business in the UFC? Nope. So
does McCall?
It's one of these situations where you hear Justin saying something like, "Oh, now he's focused. Now he's this." It's like, bro, are you telling me that prior to him, quote unquote, being focused, he wouldn't have beat Paul Craig and Daniel Jolly. He could have beat Paul Craig and Daniel Jolly 5 years ago. Like, he would have beat them in 6 months from now or 6 months ago. It does not matter. He always will beat fucking Paul Craig and Daniel Jolly because, you know, I mean, I'd put a wager that, you know, my fucking dog could beat Paul Craig and Daniel Jolly. So that's really, it doesn't impress me at all. Now, the thing with McCall, and I do understand the Khalil pick here because McCall does get tagged up early in all of his fights, and that's something I noticed on his regional scene fights. But one good quality he does have is if he's able to survive that storm, the dude's tough. And then he starts to find his range. Then he becomes one of those guys that gets gritty in there with you. So it's all about, is Khalil going to knock him out or not? That first round Khalil knockout's not going to surprise me because, look, you know, we can talk a little shit. We can be funny. But Khalil is an explosive guy. And he does train in striking with Anderson Silva. You got to show him respect. You know, he trains at Black House. So I get it. He does have some knockout power. And that's what he's known for. He knocks dudes out. But he's super inexperienced, has no wrestling, has no jiu-jitsu. So if he doesn't knock McCall out, don't be surprised when he's tapping that mat for like the 10th time. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I hope that you win. I hope Khalil gets that first round KO, but I want no part of this.
All right, guys. So moving on to the main card, and it's just 4 fights as of right now. But first fight of the main card, we got an interesting one here. We got Carlos Condit minus 165 taking on Neil Magny plus 145. And I'll let Justin start with this one.
Yeah, back on Cleo for like a quick second. The KO prop isn't the KO prop isn't out yet, so I don't know. Maybe it'll come out tomorrow. I don't know, but I'm not betting minus 212 in the distance. Okay. So, anyways, Condit versus Magny. This is a pretty good fight, in my opinion. It might be one of the best fights tonight. Who knows? But I'm definitely not picking Condit here. I have to go with Magny. I can't pick Condit. You know, the dude hasn't fought in a long time. The dude got hurt against Maya on the ground. I mean, who knows? You know how he's gonna look here. In interviews, the dude saying that he, you know, just wants the money and all this. And yeah, the dude, like Dan said, we've been talking about it for a while. But 5 years ago or 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, I definitely picked Condit all day. You know, but Condit's not the same guy anymore. I think Larkin might have changed Magny's life, though, because Magny hasn't been the same guy either. But the dude doesn't have a good takedown defense. Is Condit going to take him down? I don't think so at all. So I think Magny could definitely jab him, definitely pick him apart in the feet. And I think Condit's going to be pretty gun-shy here, to be honest. Everyone's saying that the natural-born killer is going to get a knockout. Yeah, I don't think so, man. So maybe in the video game, that's about it. But I got Magny here to win a decision. It wouldn't surprise me if Magny got a finish, but, I mean, I don't know, man. But I do think Magny has the grappling advantage for sure. And, I mean, would it surprise me if Magny took him down? No. So Condit has pretty bad takedown defense. So I'm going to have to go with the dog here. I haven't played it. I'm still thinking about it because Khalil, I can't play Khalil in the distance. So, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do. But shut up, man. But, yeah, I'm going to have to go with Neil Magny to get the win. And I think he's going to go out there and, you know, retire Carlos Condit once and for all.
Yeah, man. So I am as well picking Neil Magny, and I am going to be betting Neil Magny. I do have 2 units on him at plus 170. I was able to get that peak line there. So basically, I'll be honest, this is a fade on Carlos Condit. And when we get a guy like Carlos Condit against a top 15 guy, and make no mistake about it, Neil Magny's still a top 15 guy. He loses fights, but I mean, look at the guys he's losing to. He's losing to good fighters. I mean, all guys I would pick over this version of Carlos Condit 100%. So, I mean, to explain the fate of Carlos Condit, I mean, this is clearly a guy who has had way too many fight miles, a guy who probably pushes himself way too hard in the gym, which has taken probably a couple of years off his career. I mean, we saw the fight against Tyron Woodley where the dude just his leg broke on him, and then he comes back, he fights Thiago Alves, and if you did actually do tape and go back and watch that fight, Thiago Alves won that first round against Carlos Condit. It wasn't until the second round where Thiago started to tire a little bit that Carlos Condit was able to finish him. And then he comes back against Robbie Lawler, and, you know, it was a close fight. It arguably should have gone his way, maybe. But he took a lot of damage there, man. I mean, I feel like the damage in that fight really showed in you know, it's been showing in Robbie Lawler. I feel like it's going to be showing in Carlos Condit as well. I mean, we can sit and enjoy these brutal wars, but there's some negative outcomes when you get brutal wars like that. And Carlos Condit is, unfortunately, he's the negative side of that. He's no longer the same guy, man. So when I get a guy like Neil Magny, who's a top 15 guy, like I mentioned, sure, he has his flaws. Sure, he doesn't know how to check a leg kick. Sure, he doesn't know how to defend a takedown from Johnny Hendricks in 2017. But I don't feel like we're going to have that kind of a problem here. I don't think Carlos Condit's going to be able to give a takedown threat. I don't feel like he's going to go out there and leg kick Neil Magny's. I feel like he's not going to be able to do the Johnny Hendricks or Lorenz Larkin game plan. I feel like this fight's going to take place, on the feet. I feel like Neil Magny, the much bigger guy, I feel like he's going to have no problem outstriking Carlos Condit here, and I feel like it's probably going to be a big letdown for all you Condit guys out there. But in my opinion, it's probably going to be a little bit of a lackluster fight where Neil Magny just shows that he's got a lot more in the tank at this point. I feel like he's probably going to be able to mix in takedowns as well if he really wants to. I mean, how often do we see Neil Magny really go for takedowns? But this is the spot to get him if he's ever going to go for him against Carlos Condit. So I feel like Magny jabs up Carlos here. I feel like he kicks up Carlos here and wins a unanimous 30-27 decision. Dan, what do you think about this one?
I think for all the fans listening at home, whenever Justin says the word Khalil from now on, you have to take a shot. But as far as this fight with Condit and Magny is concerned,
I don't want to be responsible for any deaths, Dan.
Like you guys said, man, a couple years back, Condit smokes him. No doubt about it, man. I mean, Condit's the way better fighter, but he's in a tricky spot now, man. He's in that spot where he's retired twice. He retired after the Lawler fight, and he retired after the Maia fight, as you know. And this is his quote, not mine. He said, I'm not sure I can compete at this level anymore. Actually, he said, I don't think I belong at this level anymore. Those are his words, guys, not mine. I'm a Carlos Condit fan, too. I have a signed WEC belt with Condit and Dominic Cruz. You know what I'm saying? I love the natural-born killer. He's the man. WEC Condit was my boy. Early UFC Condit was my boy, too. But now it's one of those situations where, you know what's kind of interesting, man? You know how we talk about 500 fighters and shit? You know, Condit's 7-6 in the UFC, right? But we won't hold that against him, man. You know, because it's Condit, because we love him, right? But it's just kind of hard to see him being motivated for this, man. I think he simply wants that 100K to show check. You know what I'm saying? It's been over a year and a half since he fought last. He needs to get that 6-figure to show up, and provide for his family. You know, the guy's got a wife and a kid. Like, let's get that 100K check. Thing is, Magny ain't like imposing or dangerous or anything like that. So that's why if there was one fight that Condit could come back to and win, it'd probably be this one, in the top 15, right? Because there's obviously, I'm pretty sure he could beat Mickey Gall and shit like that, right? But if there's one guy in the top 15 that I think he can beat, it's Magny. It's just, is he going to do it? I don't know, man. I think Magny is a lot more hungrier. I think Magny wants it more. Thing is, Condit's a lot more skilled, so it's tricky. I'm gonna go with Magny by decision, but may the best man win.
Yeah, man, good points there. I was so indulged in talking about his body being broken that I completely forgot to mention the fact that he has retired a couple times and the things that he does say. So I'm solid on Magny here, man. And like I said, 2 units at plus 170. So moving on to this fight, man, we got Cynthia Calvillo minus 255 taking on Carla Esparza plus 215. And I'll let Dan start with this one.
Another tough fight to call, man, because for a fact they're going to get into some scrambles, and then it's going to come down to who's the better scrambler. I mean, do you favor the wrestling background of Carla Esparza, or do you favor the jiu-jitsu background of Cynthia Calvillo? And based on the fact that I have seen Esparza, get out-grappled in situations before, like in that Randa Marcos fight where I hit that plus 240, I think someone like Cynthia might have something to show this chick, because, like, you remember Cynthia's debut? I know it was against, a fucking 1-3 fighter and all this, but, dude, when you go from a Darce choke, on the front, and then you turn that into a back take, like, that's some slick shit. That's some stuff that most of these girls aren't on. You know how we talked about my girl Yan Zonan before that Kaylin Kern fight, and she's throwing side kicks to the face. That's some shit that girls aren't on. Just like with Cynthia Calvillo's ground game, these girls haven't evolved to that level yet. So, we'll find out if I'm right or wrong. If I'm wrong, she'll get grinded out, right? But I think she's going to have an answer for Esparza here in the grappling situation. I think standing it'll be pretty even, but I think that Cynthia's going to find a way to take that back, and I'm not sure if she's going to choke her out or not. No one's ever done that. I mean, look, we got to show Esparza respect. I know people like to shit on her, but look, this chick's got wins over the current champ, Rose Namajunas, inside the distance. Let me add that. She's got a win over Tisha Torres on Tough. She's got a lot of good wins. So Esparza is not someone to be counted out. I completely understand anyone taking that shot because they want to find out if Cynthia is really the real deal or not. I think at this stage, she's the real deal. I don't know if she's going to beat, the champ or nothing like that, but I think she's got enough to beat Esparza. We'll find out if I'm right or not. So I'm going to go Cynthia.
So don't get me wrong when I say this, but Carla Esparza has improved her striking. Still not good, obviously, but she has made improvements in her striking. And I feel like she's going to be using her wrestling in reverse here. I feel like Calvillo is probably going to be wanting to get under the ground. That's where her strength is, and I feel like Carla, her wrestling background, she's not only does she have good offensive wrestling, she's got good defensive wrestling, and I feel like the grappling of these two ladies, it'll cancel each other out, and this fight will take place 3 rounds on the feet. That being said, I took the over 2.5 rounds here, man, because I don't see this fight going to the ground. I feel like Carla's going to want to keep it on the feet. She knows she's made improvements in her striking, and she probably thinks she can outstrike Calvillo here over the course of 3 rounds. So I feel like Calvillo is going to be the one going for the takedowns, and Carla's going to be stuffing them. And like Dan said, when this fight's on the feet, I think it's probably even. So I don't see one girl going out there and absolutely thrashing the other. I feel like we're going to see 3 rounds of mediocre women's MMA striking, and I will ever so slightly favor Cynthia Calvillo to get the job done here, but I'm focused on the over in this fight. I don't see a finish happening. Even if it does get to the ground, man, I mean, maybe Cynthia pulls a sub out of her ass. She does have good grappling, but I feel like Carla will be able to keep it on the feet. And maybe she'll go for some desperation takedowns if she starts getting outstruck, but I do feel like the striking is pretty even here. Maybe Carla Esparza's striking 2 or 3 years ago, she'd get her ass whooped here, but I do think she made some improvements. Her striking looked better in the Randa Marcos fight. So I like the over here, man. I don't give a fuck who wins, but I like the over, and I got 3 units on it. What do you think about this fight, Justin?
Yeah, I'm pretty high on Calvillo. You guys already know that, but I think Calvillo's gonna get the job done. I'm not gonna be playing it, at minus 300 and all that. I thought it would have been pretty close to like a pick 'em, but on the feet, it's really close because Calvillo's not the best on the feet. She's pretty green on the feet, but she trains a team out. She trains a team alpha male. I want to see Calvillo fight Suarez. That'd be a good fight. We'll talk about that in the future though. But yeah, man, I think JJ really, man, beat Cookie Monster really bad, man. I mean, I don't think she's looked the same, man, since that fight. I mean, I know she has a lot of big wins, but they were before that fight, But yeah, she beat Marcos, but I mean, last fight against Moroz, like, did she look that good? I mean, she almost got tapped out too. If you almost get tapped out against her, I mean, come on, dude. Calvillo's jiu-jitsu is legit, dude. So I think she's going to get out-grappled here. I think Calvillo's going to tap her out, dude. So I wish you luck on the over, but I have a feeling that Calvillo's going to get like a first-round finish here on the ground. Obviously not in the feet. We haven't seen Calvillo, knock out any girls out yet. But I don't think her striking's on the level of, the top 10 girls, but her grappling and her jiu-jitsu is legit, dude. So I do think Calvillo is a monster, and, I think she's going to be in that top 10 really soon. Actually, you know what? Scratch it. I think she's gonna be in the top 5 really soon. So I got Calvillo here.
All right, so moving on to the co-main event of the evening, the people's main event of the evening. We got Khabib Nurmagomedov minus 280, taking on Edson Barboza plus 240. I'll start out with this one, man. I mean, initially, once again, Edson Barboza was a underdog I was looking at. I thought the line was nice and juicy, but, as time has gone on, I do feel like this is probably a good matchup for Khabib. We haven't seen him in a while. The weight cut is always a problem, but just like we were mentioning about some other guys earlier, I feel like Edson Barboza he's another guy who kind of drops the ball, and I'm not saying Khabib is an amazing striker and can knock out Edson here, but Edson is a guy who's had chin problems. We've had questions about this guy before. I mean, it's only up until he, gets amazing knockouts over Beneil Dariush that we get all back over this guy. But we got to remember that Edson Barboza is a guy that's been around for a long time and loses a lot of fights. And Khabib is serious, man. I mean, this guy is one of the top three, if not the number one wrestler slash smotherer in the world. And that's probably what he's going to be doing to Edson Barboza here, man. I feel like he takes down Edson probably with ease, like he's done with everybody else. I mean, Edson, he may be one of the top 5 strikers in the UFC, but he's not a guy that's known for his takedown defense. And looking at this fight, I feel like it's probably tailor made for Khabib here. I feel like he definitely took this fight for a reason. I mean, we've seen Khabib picking his spots so precisely. I mean, this is a fight he feels he can win. This is a fight I feel like he can win. I feel like it's gonna be disappointing for the fans in the audience who are expecting an amazing Edson Barboza KO, but we're gonna see 15 minutes of smothering here, in my opinion. So obviously not gonna bet it at minus 280 because even at plus 240, I feel like I wouldn't hate the play on Edson Barboza. I mean, like I mentioned in the Beneil Dariush fight, the guy can end the fight out of nowhere, and it's not like we haven't seen Khabib get stunned before, like in the Michael Johnson fight. So it could happen. I guess the line is just about right, and I guess that's the amount of confidence I have in Edson. The odds maker probably has it about right here, so I'll go with Khabib. I'll say he gets it done by I'll say 3rd round submission, actually. So I got Khabib 3rd round sub. Dan, what do you got here?
What I got here is no money on the line, so I get to be a fan about this one. I'm very excited. Obviously, since I'm a fan, I hope that Edson, you know what I'm saying, launches him into the 5th row. But it's going to be tough, man, because we know Edson historically has a tough time dealing with pressure fighters, man. Even that last fight with Dariush, man, I know everyone only remembers the flying knee, but what they don't remember was the first 7 minutes prior to the flying knee, and Benny was taking him to school. But then again, Benny, his striking is on a different level than Khabib, man. I mean, you saw Benny outstrike Rashid in Mexico elevation for 3 straight rounds, and you saw him knock out Vic. Like, you saw Benny do some real shit, beat Michael Johnson as well. So Benny's a completely different striker than Khabib is. But the thing is, Khabib's got that pressure. He does not give a fuck what you hit him with. He's going to keep coming forward. And when it's time to turn up, Khabib turns up. So it's about, can Edson capitalize on the fact that he's a much more explosive athlete. He's much more dynamic. He's got that fast twitch going. Like, you saw how he closed the distance in that spot against Benny. You know, Benny shoots in for a sloppy takedown, then boom, lights out. Like, he can find these little openings out of nowhere and just land the most devastating shit you've ever seen. But when we talk about closing the distance, we got to talk about Khabib too, because like I said, when it's time to turn up, Khabib will turn up, man. Like, he'll start throwing double flying knees on guys like Rafael dos Anjos. So what I'm thinking here, man, is as the fight starts, I could totally see Edson getting off on the leg kicks. I could see Edson really picking him apart. And from there, it becomes a matter of when Khabib decides to turn up. Is he going to be diminished from all the shots he took? Or is he going to just be like, hey, I'm all good, brush off the shoulders, and let's get this motherfucker down and pound him out? So it's going to be one of the two happening here. Here's the thing. The reason I passed on an Edson bet, and I hope he wins for everyone betting him, because that would be fucking incredible. And just because, like we talk about on Half the Battle, everyone's got to take that first L. You don't just go 25-0 in the deepest weight class in the UFC. Like, lightweight is an insane weight class, man. You don't just go 25-0. And if Khabib does that, oh my God, man, that would be incredible. He also hasn't fought since 2016. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if he can make the weight anymore. We got to see Friday how things are looking. If he misses weight, now here's another interesting thing, because I know people are like, oh, if he misses weight, then I got to bet Edson. Well, the last 6 people to miss weight have all won their fights, right? So, but there's a big difference, though, with those guys. Besides Emmett, I truly believe Emmett tried his hardest. But besides that, like my girl Nadia Kassem, I think she got to a point where she was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm not even going to diminish myself anymore. I'm just going to weigh in a couple pounds over, forfeit the 20%, but feel better on fight day. So if Khabib misses weight, you got to figure out, did he give everything he had to make the weight and he's just so depleted and diminished that he can't do it? Or did he say, you know what, I'm going to save a little bit of energy, forfeit the 20%, but still whoop Edson's ass. So, shit, man, it's a tough-ass call, man. I hope Edson gets it done. Gut says Khabib, but I hope Edson gets it done.
Justin?
Yeah, I got 2 units on Barbosa at plus 250. And yeah, man, I mean, fading Khabib is kind of hard. I mean, Khabib's, the best grappler in the division. The dude hasn't lost, but is he going to make weight? I mean, the whole Tony Ferguson thing. I mean, like Dan already said, obviously, 155 is very hard for him to make. And Barbosa hasn't been taken down in 3 years. I mean, I know it's against Danny Castillo, but I mean, you better believe he's been improving his grappling a lot since that fight. The dude trains with Zabit. The dude trains with Edgar, so don't give me that bull crap about, Khabib's going to go out there and make this look easy. I don't think so, man. I really don't. I mean, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, Michael Johnson beat Edson Barbosa. I don't give a fuck about fight IQ at all. So I'm not fight IQ, MMA math. So Michael Johnson has terrible fight IQ as well. I mean, the dude was beating Khabib in the first round, then he went for a guillotine. You don't go for a guillotine against Khabib. I don't think Barbosa is going to do that at all. So obviously, was one point I wanted to say. I think I said it on my show that Dan already mentioned is Khabib doesn't have the striking that Beneil does at all. Beneil is one of the best strikers in the division, So Khabib doesn't have any striking, in my opinion, at all. So I don't think his striking is good. So he better go out there and get him in the mat ASAP. And I mean, it's going to be tough, man, because Barbosa has very good takedown defense. So we'll see what happens, man. But I'm pretty confident, dude, that Barbosa doesn't go out there and get a knockout here. So I think Khabib needs to go to 170, man. Or this might be the last Khabib we're ever going to see. So the whole Ferguson thing was a huge letdown. And I know, like Dan said, pressure fighters definitely, is Edson's weakness. But this isn't Tony Ferguson, man. And Tony Ferguson was losing that fight before that up kick. I mean, Barbosa was taking it to him, dude. Then, he landed that legal up kick, changed the whole fight, in my opinion, dude. So I'm going to have to go Barbosa. I'm like talking fast. I'm going to have to go Barbosa to get the finish and the upset.
All right. So main event of the evening time, we got the UFC featherweight title or women's featherweight title defense. We got Chris Cyborg Justino minus 370 taking on Holly Holm plus 330. And I'll let Justin start with this one.
Yeah, initially about a couple months ago, I picked Holm and then I went and watched the tape and I'm going to have to go with Cyborg, but I'm not confident in her at all. I'm not going to lay 10 units like a lot of these people are. I'm not going to be, betting Cyborg at minus 300. Holm could easily grunt and run to a decision. I mean, the girl, she's a point fighter, man. I mean, she's been dropped, in the past, but I mean, I think she could run away all day in this fight and win a decision. But the thing is, Cyborg's a man, dude. The Cyborg's a 180-pound, middleweight. The dude, she looks like a dude. So she definitely has a lot of power. I think her first L is coming. I don't know, against who, but she's not going to go undefeated. I don't think so in the UFC. She's gonna. I meant in the UFC. She hasn't lost in the UFC. I meant her first loss. Yeah, I meant her first loss in the UFC. I think I said that. But anyways, yeah, man. I wanted to pick Holm really bad, and after tape, I'm gonna have to go with Cyborg. But if Holm wins, I'm really gonna be kicking myself because she was definitely a dog that I wanted to bet. But I think eventually Cyborg's gonna, knock her out. So I gotta go Cyborg.
Dan?
Yeah, it's one of those situations where is this fight really that much different than Holm versus Duran to me? Is there something I'm missing here? Because, look, man, a lot of people are very confident that Holm's going to get this upset. And some people that, I respect very much are telling me, dude, bet big on Holly Holm. So I wish those people very well, man. I hope she comes out here and cashes this for you. But we know Holly Holm is a bit chinny for the chicks. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's not just talk about the time that she got absolutely destroyed in boxing. You've seen that when she got knocked out the ring. Let's talk
twice.
Let's talk about Jermaine Duran to me rocking her at the end of the rounds every time. Yeah, I know it was after the bell, but so what? Until the ref touches you, defend yourself at all times. Those are the rules, right? And man, even that fight with Raquel Pennington, I know Rocky's a very tough chick. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just like, is Holly really that? Is she really the shit like everyone's acting like? You know what I'm saying? Like, people are acting like she was like the next coming of Christ and this and that when she first got into the UFC. I don't really feel that way, man. And with Cyborg, I mean, she treats she absolutely destroys these chicks is all I have to say. Now, it could be a matter of, are the weight cuts getting too intense? Is she going to eventually slow down? But, man, she's only like 30 or 31 years old. You know what I'm saying? She's still young. I know people think she's like 38. She's only 30 or 31, man. And, how's Holm doing after USADA? Look, yeah, I'll be the one to say that. You know what I'm saying? She was sponsored by an anti-aging clinic. So, you know what I'm saying? I know all you Holm fans can understand where I'm coming from. So we'll see if she's, operating on the same frequency that she once did. I'm going to go with Cyborg inside the distance.
Man, so this is an interesting one to me because I was really, and honestly, I still am, especially in my opinion, at such a good line. Tempted to bet Holly Holm here, man, because, I mean, the thing is with Cyborg, I mean, she is beating all these, these Tanya Evangers and Leslie Smiths and Lena Landsbergs of the world, and Holly Holm clearly is a gigantic step above them, and this probably is Cyborg's toughest fight of her career. I just wish it was somebody with Holly Holm's skills just in a different body. Like if we had a Valentina Shevchenko or Joanna Jędrzejczyk at 145 pounds, I'd be betting the shit out of them against Cyborg because, we saw Cyborg in that, I know it's not MMA, but that lion fight, kickboxing fight, she got her ass whooped there, man. I'm not saying Holly Holm is no Yorina Bars, but, I feel like maybe she could take, some notes from that fight. And, like Justin said, I feel like she can run. She can run. She can grunt. She can make this a real slow-paced, striking match. And, I feel like she probably, she could probably stuff the takedowns here. I mean, Cyborg, she's a real strong girl, but it's not like she's a D1 wrestler by any means. She's been around for a while. Holly's been around for a while. This is just a real interesting matchup, and it's hard for me to get a read on it, which is why I haven't quite pulled the trigger on Holly Holm yet. But I am gonna go with Chris Cyborg here because like Dan said, Holly Holm, she's a little chinny. She could get starched here. But I do think it would be in the later rounds because I think Holly's gonna start out trying to. I feel like Holly's game plan here, and it's kind of obvious. This is what everyone's game plan has been against Cyborg: tire the girl out, make her chase you around, make her work. And I feel like that's what Holly will probably be able to do at first. But I see Cyborg finishing this fight in the later rounds, maybe round 4, round 5, championship rounds. I took the over 1.5 rounds in this fight just because I feel like, and not only just how I feel about this matchup in particular, Cyborg hasn't been going out there and starching girls in 20, 30 seconds like she was 3 years ago. She's going out there going to round 3 against Tanya Evanger, going to round 2 against Lena Landsberg. I feel like the over 1.5 rounds is pretty safe here, especially against the toughest girl she's fought in ever. So I feel like the 7.5 minute mark is a little safe for me to play the over 1.5 rounds here, and I got that parlayed with Nikolai minus 115, 2.3 units to win 2. I feel like Holly tries to take the game plan of running and grunting, and it will work at first, but I feel like eventually Cyborg will catch up to her and take her out in those later rounds. So I'll go Cyborg KO round 4, but. I would be very careful. I wouldn't go and put 10 units on minus 300 like Justin mentioned. That's a little risky, man, because Cyborg does have that first loss coming in. Man, the fact that she went out there and made 140 pounds, that's crazy. I mean, it's even crazy that she makes 145 pounds. I feel like that last 5 pounds she cut in the 140-pound fight, I think it was against Leslie. I want to say that was her UFC debut where she made 140. That's terrible, man. And I could go on with the whole thing. I feel like Cyborg was definitely pressured to make that weight. That's such a gigantic cut. That's like asking Khabib to make 145 pounds, man. That's crazy. You look at the girl, and I've seen her in person. She's huge. So. I feel like there's so many factors in this fight. You got to stay away from it. It's dog or pass. And speaking of dog or pass, go check out that dog or pass podcast with my boy Paul Shag and Cody. So, yeah, man,
Hey,
I'm
Kelton,
going to – yeah.
Can I say one thing real quick, man?
You sure can.
So obviously, you know, I'm not counting out Holm. She could win all this, but it's not going to go down like the Jarina Barsh fight at all. Because Jarina Barsh, she's a 42-0 Muay Thai fighter. What she does is she walks chicks down, leg kicks, tie clinch. That's the complete opposite of what Holly does. Holly hits and grunts and runs, to quote my boy Justin. So, you know, the whole ish, that's not going to look like Jarina Barsh. I'll tell you that right now.
Right. She won't be able to pull off what Yorina Bars did, but she definitely can take notes from that fight without a doubt. So, like I said, it pains me to do it, but I'm gonna pick Cyborg, but I'm gonna root for Holly here. Obviously, follow me and Justin on Twitter to see if either of us makes that bet. I'm probably just gonna save the cash and use it towards a certain Ryzen play I've been looking for. Hopefully those odds come out soon. I might be able to make a nice little bet there. Obviously, follow us. I'm going to let these guys plug all their stuff in a second. But, yeah, man, overall, I think this card's awesome. And I'm going to be rooting for that Holly upset. So, of course, like we always do in these roundtable breakdowns, we give not only our predictions for the fights, we give our predictions for the fight of the night and the performance of the night bonuses. So, I'll start like always. Fight of the night, I am going to go with Dan Hooker and Mark Diakiese. I think we see all kinds of fireworks in this fight. I think it's a very well evenly matched fights, and we know these evenly matched fights more often than not really, you know, they deliver, and I do feel like this is an evenly matched fight. And, you know, take two strikers and a very exciting one in Mark Diakiese. I think these guys will put on a show, so I'll give them the fight of the night, even though it'll probably go to the main event like it does 90% of the time. And then the performance of the night bonuses. I'm gonna go with my boy Rick Glenn, and I'm gonna go with I'm trying not to steal Dan's here, but I'll steal Justin's. I'll take Khalil. I'll say Khalil and Rick Glenn get performance of the night. Justin, what about you, man? What are you thinking here for bonuses?
Yeah, for fight of the night, I'm gonna have to go with it's tough, man. Either Jury versus Glenn or Vittori versus. I'm gonna go for Vittori versus Omari. I know it's the first fight, but you know those guys are gonna be slugging it out, man. And I mean, there could be some good ground exchange in that fight too. So, I think there's gonna be a finish in that fight, probably late in the fight though. But yeah, I got Vittori versus Omari, and performances. You already stole one of mine. Obviously, we all know I'm going with Khalil. And for my second, I got to go with, damn, it's close. I want to go with either Nikolai or Barboza, but I'll go Barboza for my second performance of the night.
What about you, Dan?
You guys already know what the fuck is going on. My boy Mateus Nikolai is about to absolutely school Louis Smolka, get that 50K. Hey, if they want to give him 100K because of that layoff, I'm cool with that, but he's going to get 50K. And I hope the other 50K goes to Barboza, because that would just be so cool. Just to show Khabib, and look, I'm a fan of all these guys, but just to show Khabib that, look, man, no one is exempt from that first L. It does not matter who the fuck you are, man. And especially when you've been out for a year and a half and you're not, you know, you drop out of a title fight the day of. Like, come on, man. You got to take an L for that. So I'm going to go Barboza and my boy Mateus. And then for fight of the night, I mean, come on. Carlos Condit, Neil Magny. Carlos Condit has 5 fight of the nights in the UFC. He's got 1 fight of the night in the WEC. I think he's going to move that up to 7 total, man. So I'm going to go with Carlos Condit versus Neil Magny for fight of the night.
All right, guys. So that is going to do it for UFC 219. And before I thank these two gentlemen for coming on, I want to thank all you guys, the viewers, the subscribers, because this is going to be my last video of 2017. And it was an amazing year, man. This time last year, I had 90 subscribers this time last year, and now I'm sitting at a pretty 580. So I want to thank you all very much. And if you're not subbed, subscribe, because there's all kinds of fun videos and, you know, all kinds of cool shit on this channel. So definitely subscribe so you don't miss it. Like the video. That takes like 2 seconds. Comment below. I want to hear who all of you guys are betting on. I'm genuinely interested in that every week. And follow me on Twitter at MMAKelton. I'll talk fights with just about anybody as long as you know what you're talking about. So I want to thank these two gentlemen, Justin and Dan, 2 of my favorite people in this little MMA world. I'm going to let them plug their stuff. Justin, why don't you go ahead first?
Yeah, man. Follow me on Twitter at UFC Bro Picks. My bet and made tips. I bet and made tips are the same, Bro Picks. And follow me if I, hit Neil Magny. I'm thinking about it. The more I talk about it, I might do it. And obviously, if I play Khalil, in the distance, that actually, fuck that, I'm about to do -212. But if I play the KO prop, And yeah, man, watch my, subscribe to my channel, watch my channel, UFC Bro Picks. I think we put our podcast out yesterday. And yeah, let's kill this weekend, guys. Go Khalil.
Dan, where can they find you?
Well, guys, he mentioned Khalil twice there, so take 2 shots. But first of all, I want to thank all the listeners of Kelton Show. Thank you guys for supporting Kelton. Make sure you subscribe to Kelton's channel. Also subscribe to Justin's channel. And if you want to find me, I have a show. It's called Half the Battle. It's available everywhere that podcasts are available. And, just got to keep the winning numbers alive. You know what I'm saying? You go check me out, Bet MMA Tips, Capper Tech, wherever. The numbers don't lie is all I got to say. So make sure you check out the new Half the Battle tomorrow with me and my boy Shaq. And I was about to say until the next time, let's cash these bets. But this is your show, so I appreciate you having me on, bro.
Yes, sir. And speaking of all the places you can find a podcast, I promise you guys, iTunes will happen. Hopefully in the first quarter of 2018, but we'll see. So once again, thank you guys all very much for listening to us talk about these fights. I wish you all the best of luck, and I wish you all a very happy new year. Thank you for watching, and enjoy the fights.